This is where Call of Duty's in trouble. Take away FaZe, take away OpTic. Who watches this fucking sport?
Less people than watch Brawl Stars Esports.
That's the scary part, right? All right, let's talk about some good esports, normal good stuff. Texas esports, if you will. Woo! We had our friend Hector on the show a couple weeks ago. Got to interview him. Merger of Envy and OpTic together.
Right.
Creating this big old brand in Texas. They've taken over the lease and the production agreement with Esports Arena Arlington.
So is Texas big enough for the two of them or no?
No.
Now they've merged, right?
They're merged.
Yeah.
And what I've seen seems to be happening is Envy seems to be becoming the content and the streamers.
Right.
The Botez sisters, Code and Miko, they've got a whole house, the Envy house and all that. And it seems like slowly but surely OpTic is becoming the competitive side of this media company.
I thought it would be the other way around because I always felt like the OpTic and maybe by extension Hector was like a better brand and personality builder, whereas Envy were like really good on the business side of things, right?
I thought so too. And then, you know, we interviewed Hector, and then sure as shit, that day, the next day, OpTic VALORANT team drops, right? Literally right afterwards, right? Which again,
we knew would happen. We knew that would happen.
Because it got leaked, right? But even that, we were kind of debating, okay, what teams is Envy going to take or players versus, you know, and I think Envy's going to be this creator brand. And OpTic, I don't see a need for two competitive brands where they split. Okay, Envy will stay Rocket League. It just seems like you're going to put all the cheering fans under OpTic for your esports brands and then work this Envy thing for your content creators.
Did you just say Envy will stay Rocket League?
No, won't stay Rocket League.
Okay,
Because that's what they have right now. Envy does have a Rocket League, but it seems like you just move all the competitive stuff under one brand and go for it.
Why would you compete against yourself? Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
they didn't compete against themselves. They competed against a bunch of teams in the CDL over the weekend. The first CDL major of the year, Scott.
Yes. Taking place, again, in Texas, Dallas-Fort Worth, Arlington, to be exact, the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Because it costs them fuck all to use that venue, I assume. Because of their business partnership with that venue.
Well, I don't know the nature of how CDL is propping these up. Like, is this a home and away thing again? So is it on the home team to have these costs? So therefore, obviously, OpTic is in bonus round because they have the deal to run all the production out of they have a venue at their disposal, right? That is a very unique position.
Staff, right?
And a full production company inside that building because they're doing shit unrelated to the team brands.
No,
right?
I assume that like multiple teams will have to host quote unquote majors, right? And reap the benefits for that. But for OpTic, like those costs to running this event might already have just been part of the overheads of owning that venue anyway, right? Outside of operational costs on the day. So for them, it seems like a slam dunk. Their own venue, they're used to integrating with the space, with Call of Duty as well. Not the first time they've done this. Local fan base, people will make the trip to see OpTic. Seems like a no-brainer for theirs to be the sort of first stop. The challenge is for the other teams to try and match this in some way, right? Next one's in what? You said Minnesota, yeah?
Yeah, I think Minnesota is the next major.
Right.
So I guess it's on them to see what they're going to do. I want to go ahead and play a video of pure home court advantage at play here that I don't know if anyone but OpTic can pull off. Let's go ahead and play this video, and then we'll talk about it. Very much home court advantage there. No mistaking it. Not a kind of biased crowd. A very OpTic crowd in Texas this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the event was, for all intents and purposes, by them and for them, if you think OpTic and their sort of fan base. We had a discussion, though, I want to say, was it last year, about the Astralis situation when they played in Ernsa, I think it was, or Copenhagen, I don't know which one it was, where the crowd was indicating to them what the opponents were sort of doing in like as non-verbal a way as possible. There was just like it got louder, right? And you have mics on as players, so you do hear the crowd, right? Generally, it becomes ambient after a while. But check this clip out. This is a good example of the kind of more tangible advantage you can get on top of this sort of home ground advantage, one that OpTic definitely had made available to them.
No kills, and you see it easy. He's actually got the automaton, so they're ready for these outer lanes, and you see what the game plan is. OpTic, they've got some outer lanes covered.
And they're going to try to find something. Shots, he's got to check it, but that is absolutely unbelievable. He jumps off it. Just the last second, less than 30 now to play with. They've got no idea. Dashi flies forward. What's the information pass? Can Scump get it every time? It's a 2. No, now it's a 1v3. They stuck the bomb at the very beginning of the plant. It's a tried but true classic strat. Atlanta FaZe prove they have the ice. They put it all on the table in the final round.
So then that turned into a tweet. Obviously, FaZe won this round, but the idea would be that the intel of the crowd cheering, much like in Counter-Strike, those tells, if a player can hear them in time and process what they might mean, can literally sway around. Now, in this particular case, that did not help OpTic. They still lost the round, but it brings up this overarching question about competitive integrity issues where, unlike sports, our fans have access to information that our players don't have access to. So there are certain games that you can help a team or hurt a team depending on what your crowd is doing.
Right.
Again, this one didn't necessarily work in OpTic's favor, but it's something to think about. That search and destroy, it's very Counter-Strike-like in the sense of defusal and all that. I don't see Call of Duty ever going into boost and soundproofing and white noising and all that. That's how you start to solve this problem if you feel it is a problem on your stages. But I also don't know if it's any other problem for any other venue other than OpTic in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, that's
in the sense of how many fans would,
That's a fair question. I think Hastro also tweeted saying, guys, don't do this. Obviously, there might have been more audience members that didn't even necessarily think to try and use that opportunity to convey. They might have just been excited by what was going on. But you can see quite clearly in the clip that we're in the middle of the round. Normally a fairly tense time. I like to treat that part of the round as like before a tennis serve kind of thing, or at least it's how I perceive it. And there's a rumble in the crowd starting to sort of emanate when there's nothing on the kill feed. There's, it's just straight away. The difference between esports and traditional sports is that in traditional sports, you have all the information on the playing field, right? None of the playing field is obscured to you as a player or a coach or anybody else like that. In fact, you have advanced analytics that coaches and stuff can actually use. It's positional. It's purely positional, and then the athletic element comes in, plus the tactical side. In esports, especially where there's a quote-unquote fog of war or players can only see so much, a lot more information is much more important. How it's gleaned, how it's imparted, what's implied, even more so in tactical shooters, right? Sometimes no information is information, right? That's why it's a problem here. In a grass and pitch sports game, obviously nothing's really being obscured from the players as to the game state or as to, the position of their opponents here. So it's a problem. Obviously it affects the competitive integrity here. And, it's all well and good to go out and tell a crowd. OpTic fans are so diehard that I don't think they have any problems conveying that information to their team. Didn't work there, obviously, but it's a huge advantage. And, do you want to put players in sound booths and further sanitize or put barriers in between players and the crowd? If you want to eliminate this issue, then you might have to. No one gives it, for example, in a game like Overwatch or League of Legends, it doesn't so much matter. League, slightly, you could be in a bush. In Overwatch, no one knows what's actually going on in the game
so fast,
to be able to, to sort of do that. There are games that this is an issue with, but, did it mar this event? I mean, it's hard to say because it is definitely, people's excuse, the common excuse from the common Call of Duty enjoyer that I saw in the thread, and you know how I feel about the common Call of Duty enjoyer. They were just like, oh, it's been done. This is how it's been for ages. Why is this a problem?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, all right. The fact that so many of you think that this is a valid reason for not doing anything says everything I need to know about, your fan base and how you sort of treat interacting with the game. Still, it was a sick event. Grand final, little anticlimactic. This wasn't helped by the way that the winning moment was captured. In this one, I fell off my chair in this one. See if you can spot the egregious fuck-up in production in this clip of the winning moment of the OpTic Major.
I'd be a little bit nervous right now. It's
on to the bomb. I don't know. It is so close.
Got it. I don't know.
We gotta go to the bomb. Show the bomb.
Show me the bomb.
Show me the bomb.
Wait, did he get it? Done! It's done! It's done!
if your casters are screaming at you in production like that, you fucked it up. You know, like.
To be fair, if anybody's going to call out production live on air, it's probably going to be Clint Evans. To be honest, actually, was that actually Clint, or that might actually have been Miles in chance? I'm not sure. Either way, someone fucked up really badly. You cannot do this. You know what? You know what's so egregious? I work with this company, by the way. I work with Esports Engine. They're great.
Yeah.
I work Twitch Rivals with them. I work Brawl Stars with them. But Esports Engine are like the soul of them is MLG, which is the soul of like Call of Duty and Halo esports in the Midwest and in the United States. So this is like a fuck up that should never be happening. And at a major, like obviously this is figurative, but I would have slapped silly the person that did this in the production room. Okay, not actually, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's the sentiment. Catching the players. Leaning back and, that's supposed to be a winning moment shot, Scott. And they completely fucked that up.
Yep. Yeah, it came out too early, then went in, then by the time they came back out, again, fucked it up. And it's this constant battle when you're in the control room because our sport doesn't show the human side of the emotion all the time.
Yeah.
You see the digital side of the sport in a little window of a guy.
Yep.
So producers and directors are always trying to show you that human element, but it's a timing issue. And they fucked it up. Simple as that.
The human element is like one of the most important ways that we can leverage like a part of esports that appeals to everybody equally, right? That's actually the general appeal that we can generate. So I understand why they want to capture that moment.
This is why this is what replay is all about. So you stay on that bomb because again, it was so close. If he doesn't get that defuse and you've missed it, you fucked it up even worse. So you're better to keep it there and then grab that ISO shot of the team celebrating and re-roll it if you have to because you missed it. Just a shitty end to a good weekend, right? Because it was a good event, good tournament.
I would be fucking molding if I was the caster there as well. To be fair, I would have pivoted in that moment. Like I just would, to be honest with you, this is more of a stylistic opinion thing. I would never have called out the production in the final moment of a tournament. I would have I would have vamped and built a little bit of just space into that moment.
Gotcha.
And then been ready to pick it up as soon as they flick back, trusting that they would flick back, right?
Yeah.
As a caster, you have to be prepared for that. So, like, not all of the blame goes on the production side here. As a caster, some casters have the tendency to do that, to call that production, because it diverts blame away from them, and they feel like, it puts them more on the side of, like, the audience in that moment. So, don't fucking do that. Don't do that. As a caster, don't do it. If you're one of my casters that I'm sort of working on and training, I will kick you out the booth if you do that.
Well, and again, you're like audiences are trained to listen to those casters. So like if the casters, to your point, don't say a word,
influencers, Scott.
They are influencers. If they don't say a word about it, if they just go along with it in their mind, he's going to get the defuse, they're going to win, and they start pre-celebrating. Maybe no one even catches it.
Mate, a good caster, like a truly great caster, will actually work with that moment and make it better. So. That's
the minute they start calling it out, you've basically you've thrown the
I don't like it. You're on the
front
same,
of the world,
you're on the same
150,000 people.
And you know what we even try to avoid doing, because in early Overwatch observing, there's like a lot not happening not on camera. And one thing we did at times was mention things that weren't happening on camera. Because they added context to maybe the situation or whatever. But and Jason, obviously the guy that's behind the desk on this show, was the producer there, and we talked about it a bunch, and we sort of decided better not to do that. Better not to refer to stuff that was happening off the screen, and just try and work a bit more in the narrative with them. Because if you present more cohesive front, producers, observers, and casters, it's much better show. I think it's much higher quality, and there's no like LA production or stuff like that. Doesn't add anything to it. So I'm a little disappointed of that, but hey, these aren't my fucking casters, so I mean, one of them was probably an Esports Awards Caster of the Year award. We know how much that.
I mean,
means,
today
so.
we've learned that you've got a harem, a cadre. What are we going to call these people? Of casters under you? Will you have a little group? What do you got here?
At times, I've had the privilege of working with up and coming casters and provide feedback and sort of.
Is this a service you provide? Can I get on board? I'm terrible at my throws.
Yeah.
I ramble a lot.
We can catch up. We can talk about it a little bit.
Maybe a Uber masterclass might be in order.
Oh yeah,
Be a top tier broadcaster in 30 days.
Would I be able to stretch that out to a full masterclass? And how much would I charge for that? I wonder.
A tier 1 esports commentator.
Yeah, but you know
in 30
what?
days.
It's like writing a book on esports. You know, just because you wrote a book on something doesn't fucking mean you know anything of what you're talking
That's
about.
very true.
So I'm not so sure if I want to do that, but again, just an opinion. But fucking don't do it. Hey, can we show this? We haven't looked at this. Let's talk about the aftermath of this event.
Yes.
And sort of the viewership and the kind of the buzz that it managed to generate. Because we've talked a bunch about like Halo Esports, right? And how maybe that's not where they want it to be. What do you, Scott, in your years of experience, think about this? About 157,000 peak viewers for a COD major.
I mean, how I feel is that seems low to me. But that is in the vacuum of not knowing what CDL thinks is a good number for them, right?
Yeah, but
or the teams.
What do you think is good?
But I'm a Counter-Strike guy, so like a week ago we broke a record for a non-major, over 1 million, right? So I look at that and go, that's really fucking low for a franchise, really expensive league. But almost 200K, 5 years. That's also not a bad number, right? I don't. It's hard to quantify it, but at its core, if Halo's a low number that we talked about, this is a low number. Or is Counter-Strike just doing great numbers, right? That's the other side of the positive, and this isn't a negative necessarily, right? Now, what I would say, what also jumps out to me is how few teams are kind of listed as to who brought those numbers, right? This is where Call of Duty's in trouble. Take away FaZe, take away OpTic, who watches this fucking sport?
Less people than watch Brawl Stars Esports.
That's the scary part, right? And what I also think is going to happen is everyone who's got money invested in this game, other than OpTic and Envy, are going to look at this very successful weekend out of Dallas and go, oh my God, the homestand idea will work. This will rock everywhere. We'll do great in Boston. We'll do great in Minnesota. You won't. You won't do that again.
Yeah. I think like also with events like this, if you're putting them on, you're probably considering the sort of cultural, I guess, footprint that the event itself has, and sort of what kind of activations and events and foot traffic are able to create here. But like, it's like a 1,700 person crowd, I think. So it's not that big.
No.
I don't think it's enough.
No,
I don't think it's enough viewers at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess where this also works in OpTic's favor for that particular weekend, because we talk about like, you just ESL or whatever tournament that throws a venue, takes over a tournament, venue for a weekend. They lose money, we say, right? They can't charge enough for tickets. They don't sell the broadcast rights. It's a losing endeavor to throw the party right now still, right? Yeah. So where this also works into a very unique positive for OpTic is, again, remember, they're a production company with a production facility that they just used. So even if this weekend they lost money on, that venue, what they just did, sometimes when we do shit here, we lose money on it, but now we've got a demo in our pocket for the client to show, oh, we did this weekend with this client. So they will charge clients the next couple months that can make up for the money they might have lost this weekend. How does every other esports team that has to throw these events do that?
How does like Minnesota? I mean, I guess Minnesota's not a great example because Gary Vee is busy like selling NFTs of stick figures for like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Like these teams are so disparaged in what they all own and run.
Disparate, yeah.
Yeah. How can they? Yeah, wrong word. Sorry. Yeah. How can they even throw the same kind of party? And are we going to get to like baseball where you've got the Montreal Expos who had to get money from everybody else? Do they have to get into a collective bargaining and sharing agreement because not all the markets make the same money? Are these franchise sports going to get like those franchise sports?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think that collective bargaining agreement was kind of what we saw with the early Overwatch homestand model in 2020. That teams would all have like a fairly like a stake in a particular homestand. It wasn't just like it wasn't possible for just one team to bear the cost of putting on one of these like homestand events. So they all kind of went in together and they sort of shared everything. And I could see that happening because you can't tell me that the Boston Breach, despite their social media growth, which has outstripped the other brands of the CDL by a considerable amount, so they're doing a great job in that regard. You can't tell me that brand is going to leverage nearly as much sort of involvement and interaction as as an OpTic or FaZe.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'd be concerned about. Also, there obviously is only a finite number of majors per year, right? There's probably a large amount of online play bookended by majors every quarter or whatever, 3-4 year plus champs. Like, it's probably not too much. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think these leagues are still trying to find a way to make it worthwhile. A good example is like Merc and Maven are not working every COD match. These guys are just doing majors and champs. Fucking chilling, by the way, because I guarantee they make more. They make more than about 80% of casters in esports just working the majors and champs. The rest of the time, they fucking stream. Absolutely mental.
Yeah, and I will keep an eye on these next set of homestands, if we're going to call them that. I think they'll all be okay the first ones because we're back. We're out of COVID. Every city will be excited to have gaming again. So I think even Minnesota will have good fan bases. It's usually once these things get going for a while.
Yeah.
Whereas I think OpTic can always fill that place in Dallas. I don't know if everybody can do that. So I guess we'll see.
I don't know. Yes. But I think, like, you know, the market for esports has grown a lot. And I don't think the market share for someone like, in fact, you know, because esports has grown, the market share for COD has gotten smaller. Because if it had stayed the same, their viewership would also be increasing by an appreciable amount year over year. It's not. It's not doing that. In fact, as we discussed like a couple months ago, a huge amount of the market share is dedicated to fucking mobile game esports events, right?
And
wake up, people.
And I really wonder how just the product of Warzone has just divided that games community to the traditional Call of Duty competitive types and that BR. Right, just
that has its own like world.
And it's
of
got its
Warzone,
own thing,
right?
yeah. So maybe they just lost a whole shitload of fans that'll never watch Search and Destroy and all that shit again because that's their esport.
You can't tell me like this isn't like being fed the same stale biscuit that you've just shat out like the week beforehand. You know what I mean? Like it goes down. It comes up to the game as well. Like so many people are saying like the game is fundamentally the same with a slightly different sheen, if there even is one each sort of year. And, you know, I'm interested to see how long this model can be rinsed and repeated. You can see there's changes right now. Activision, or rather, the Call of Duty franchise is now pivoting to like a 2-year cycle as opposed to a 1-year cycle. And I think as time goes on, people are going to realize that games as a service, as opposed to like singular releases, is going to be much more effective in the long term, especially with ways to integrate your MTX as opposed to, you know, like a purchase here or there. That's like a whole nother.
Yeah, because to the bean counter, it's all about how do I get at least $60 a year out of you.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to give me a brand new box every time to do that.
Hey,
right?
$60 a battle pass, for
yeah,
example.
so many ways to do that now to keep that money train rolling without having to put a new box
Activision are in the Stone Age when it comes to their MTX strategy. It's actually fucking disgraceful. Like the Overwatch one, even when Overwatch came out, their MTX model was prehistoric. And it hasn't changed since then, so you know just how bad and how egregious it is now.